But let me ask this question. It's from Important John, another great name. His question really talks about, there's obviously a lot of what you might call conspiracy theories floating around at the moment. The idea that, COVID was created by Bill Gates and all this other stuff. Heather, I know that there are some conspiracies which have now increasingly turned out to be actually true. Lab leak is something we'll be talking with Brett about on Tuesday. But from a psychological perspective, Jordan, what is the appeal of a conspiratorial view of the world? Why are people drawn to conspiracies?
I think it's often a manifestation of low agreeableness, distrust. It's simple and explanatory, so that's helpful. We tend to personify things. It's easy to see malevolence and intent where there's just ignorance and randomness. And because it's important to identify malevolent intent, we might have a tendency to over-perceive it, especially in the outgroup, let's say. But I think there's additional factors at play right now. Like, it's not that easy to distinguish conspiratorial thinking from just creative thinking, right? So there's something happens. There's a bunch of explanations why it might happen. Now, you might have a cockeyed conspiratorial version, and then you go talk to your friends and your family, and they sort of tune you in. But let's say it's COVID and you're isolated. Well, every one of us has got a proclivity towards our own particular form of insanity. Like, we blow out at our weakest point when we're stressed. And the way that we deal with that is by banging ourselves up against other people. It's like, what do you think of this? I think that's stupid. Oh, okay, well, maybe I'll have to go rethink it. Well, that's part of what keeps our conspiratorial thinking under wraps, right? We have to share it with other people, and if they think it's preposterous, then we go back and rethink it. It's distributed cognition in the social space. Now you can find like-minded people for your conspiracy instantly, and they're not even real people. Often they're disembodied, and so we also have no idea what that's doing to human, social, cognitive, political thinking. We don't know. And that's another consequence of this radical transformation in technology. We don't even know what it does to people to have to speak over video instead of in person, what that does to discourse. We have no idea what Twitter does to thought. You have to compress your thought into, a minimum number of, or maximum number of characters. Well, does that bias you towards the expression of impulsive aggression? Kind of looks like it. Does it increase the probability that you're going to speak out kind of in the privacy of your own cocoon, like you're behind the wheel of an automobile and shielded when something irritates you? Could easily be. These are mass communication networks with huge effects, and we have no idea about what they do to us psychologically. And we'll never figure it out, because by the time we study it, they'll have transformed into something completely different. So it's tough. It's a tough one.
Heather?
I agree.
Don't assume malevolence where you can assume ignorance.
Yeah,
that's a good mental hygiene approach to conspiratorial thinking. It's probably stupidity.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just, this isn't and also not following from that, and also, and I know you're having a conversation, as you said, with Brett on Tuesday. Currently, alternative approaches to thinking through what we are being told are being branded as conspiracy as a way to shut down the conversation.
Right.
And so this is, this is the death of science. This is exactly the same people who are branding things conspiracy theory are saying #follow the science. And these aren't people who would recognize a hypothesis that was alternative to the only one that they're allowing us to talk about if it hit them in the face. So, there's a weaponization of words, again, but specifically, as of 5-10 years ago, we all knew that we were most afraid of being called racist. And now it's understood that you certainly don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist. But hey, remember that every big idea, and probably most of the small ones too, that we now understand to be true, were once promoted by one or a couple of people, and they were roundly mocked and perhaps stigmatized and perhaps even ostracized or even executed for even saying the thing. And so, yes, lab leak is a perfect example, and there are more in COVID space, and there are more all the time. And what social media does is it gives the bullhorn to the orthodoxy, to those who are claiming they have no power at all, but actually have the power to shout down any dissent to the reigning narrative.
If you look at the way science works, you think about it this way: well-meaning people doing everything they possibly can to rein their egos in, generate hypotheses about why something happens. 99 out of 100 times they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now, if you're right 1% of the time, and that's cumulative, man, your knowledge is progressing so damn fast, you can't even keep up with it. But your error rate is still 99%. And that's with the best method we possibly have to detect, some facet of the truth. In the political space, well, it's much harder. So the error rate is going to be much, much greater. And of course, everybody's tail's in a knot because they've been locked down for a year and a half. And God only knows how insane we are because of that and what the consequence of that's going to be. I mean, I certainly don't think that the lockdown is going to result in net life saving. I doubt that very much. Now, we'll probably never have the data. And I can understand that the Western world, and the rest of the world for that matter, didn't want to see their medical system completely swamped. But I doubt very much that we saved people. We'll see. I don't know.
Oh, we saved some people at the cost of others, is what you mean.
We saved some people in the short term at the cost of many others in the long run.
Agreed.
And look, those sorts of trade-offs, we make those sorts of trade-offs because that immediately evident catastrophe, mortality, is a lot more difficult to deal with psychologically than, a 5% increase in the rate of alcoholism or something like that, which is basically invisible. I'm not castigating the people who did this. Well, the people who did this were us, so castigate away.